The Derby Family Massacre. Derby was known for its peaceful evenings, where the most exciting thing was the latest neighborhood gossip. But on one fateful night, something felt off. It was the kind of unsettling feeling you can't quite place but know something isn't right. In this seemingly quiet town, a peaceful neighborhood, a loving family, and 6 children peacefully asleep should have meant tranquility. But instead, a greedy, twisted man turned their home into a scene so horrific that it left the whole town reeling and even brought the police to tears. Welcome to the infamous tragedy of the Derby Family Massacre. Grab your metaphorical magnifying glasses because we're about to unravel the horrifying details of this unimaginable nightmare. They say every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. That statement has never been truer than in today's case. Instead of seeing his children as tiny humans needing protection, Mick Philpott, a man with 17 kids from 5 different women, viewed them as his personal cash cows, generating government benefits. On May 11, 2012, a fire consumed his Derby home, killing 6 of his children. But this wasn't a tragic accident. It was part of Philpott's twisted plan to burn down the house and frame his ex-wife, all while playing the hero. His insatiable greed and narcissism led him to commit one of Britain's most horrific crimes. So why would a father orchestrate such a vile act? Was it revenge, money, or control? In this video, we'll unravel the chilling details of the Derby Family Massacre and explore the mind of Mick Philpott, a man who sought media sympathy but ended up behind bars for life. Let's dive into this appalling case and understand what drove Philpott and his accomplices to commit such a heinous act. First, let's get to know the main perpetrator, Mick Philpott. Mick Philpott, the master manipulator. Mick Philpott wasn't just a bad husband and father. His violent history went back years. In 1978, he tried to kill his ex-girlfriend, stabbing her 27 times for leaving him. Despite serving time, his violent streak only grew worse. Born in 1956, Mick became notorious for fathering 17 kids with multiple women not out of love but control. His first abusive relationship began at 19 with 15-year-old Kim Hill, whom he brutally assaulted, once hitting her with a pool cue in public. He even shot her with a crossbow over a short dress. When Kim finally broke up with him, Mick went AWOL from the army, broke into her house, and stabbed both Kim and her mother. Somehow, they survived. Despite being convicted of attempted murder, Mick only served 3 years before being released for good behavior, which, as expected, did nothing to change him. Mick moved on, marrying Pamela LX and continuing his abuse, then left her for a 14-year-old girl named Heather. They had 2 sons, but Mick was as violent as ever, punishing Heather for not having a daughter and even teaching his sons to abuse her. She eventually escaped, calling Mick a Jekyll and Hyde. Charming at first, but vicious beneath the surface. The Philpott family. A house of secrets. Philpott was anything but your typical family man. Instead of a cozy home life, he was juggling 2 women under one roof. His wife, Mairead, and his mistress, Lisa Willis. Oh, and they had 11 kids between them. Yes, you read that right. 1 man, 2 women, and a small army of children. And if you're wondering how that arrangement panned out, well, it didn't end well. Philpott ruled his household like a deranged monarch, controlling every facet of his family's lives while pretending to be a family man. But his control wasn't just about power. It was about seeking admiration, attention, and a fat welfare check tied to his kids. It was hardly the setup for a heartwarming family sitcom. Mick Philpott gained notoriety for flaunting his large family and demanding a bigger council house, earning the title of Britain's biggest scrounger for claiming £25,000 a year in benefits. In 2007, he appeared on The Jeremy Kyle Show and in a documentary with MP Ann Whittam, who tried to help him reform. The documentary highlighted his failure to keep jobs and his abusive behavior toward his wives. Witham noted his indifference and the tense family environment. Despite multiple opportunities to change, Philpott's abuse continued, including a 2010 police caution for assaulting Mayred. His story reflects a relentless cycle of abuse and manipulation. In 2000, Mick Philpott, then in his 30s, began a relationship with 19-year-old Mayred Duffy, a single mother escaping an abusive past. They quickly moved in together, and after the birth of their first child, Jade, Philip proposed. Around the same time, he started a relationship with 16-year-old Lisa Willis, an orphan and single mother. The three women, all teenagers when they met Philpott, became close, with Lisa helping care for Mayred's children. In May 2003, Philpott married Mayred with Lisa as the bridesmaid. The family lived in a cramped 3-bedroom council house with their 11 children. While Mayred and Lisa worked, Philpott remained unemployed, relying on their earnings and government benefits, and he sought more children and a larger house, which was denied. Rumor has it that despite the chaos, Mayred and Lisa managed to get along and even shield each other from Philpott's brutality. Their children bonded well, too. Surprisingly, despite the abuse, Mayred refused to divorce Philpott when he wanted to marry Lisa. It's not like Philpott treated Lisa any better. By February 2012, Lisa had had enough. She decided to leave Philpott and told Mayred she was taking their 5 children swimming. Instead, she moved in with her sister to avoid confrontation. This wasn't just an emotional blow to Mick. It was a threat to his entire way of life. He not only lost control over Lisa and the children, but also the benefits they brought. You'd think a man with 17 kids might chill out or seek some therapy. But not Mick. No, he decided the best way to get back at Lisa was to frame her for something much darker. 3 months later, still seething, and in the midst of a messy custody battle, Philpott, Mayred, and a family friend named Paul Mosley devised a horrific plan to burn down their house. And that's where things take a truly sinister turn. The deadly plan, a tragedy in flames. Philpott's plan was as twisted as it was reckless. He, along with Mayred and their friend Paul Mosley, decided to set their own house on fire with their children inside just to frame Lisa Willis and win a custody battle. Why? To get his kids back, score bigger benefits, and maybe land a larger council house. Brilliant, right? The plan was set for the night before a custody hearing, with Philpott and Mosley pouring gasoline through the letterbox and setting the fire. Philpott intended to play the hero, swooping in to save his kids and come out looking like Father of the Year. But, in a move that shocked no one but Philpott, things went horribly wrong. On May 11th, 2012, at 4 a.m., the fire spread faster than they anticipated. 6 children, Jade, John, Jack, Jess, and Jaden, died at the scene, while their half-brother, Duane, succumbed to his injuries 2 days later in the hospital. They all died from smoke inhalation as temperatures upstairs reached an unbearable 500 degrees Celsius. The fire was confirmed as arson, and Philpott's tragic scheme ended in the heartbreaking deaths of his own children. The investigation. Mick Philpott was a master manipulator. After his children died in a fire, he played the role of a heartbroken father, fooling many in his community into believing he was a loving dad. While locals set up charities for the funerals, some defended him, convinced of his genuine sorrow. But his behavior was a red flag. He flirted with a police officer and put on a bizarre show of gratitude at a press conference, thanking the community and announcing organ donations. But Mick's carefully crafted facade began to crumble. Authorities were suspicious from the start. Something about his fake tears didn't quite add up. Evidence at the scene indicated arson, with petrol used to ignite the fire. Mick's attempts to play the grieving father were transparent to anyone paying attention. Behind the scenes, forensic evidence mounted. Police discovered petrol traces on Philpott and his accomplice Paul Mosley, along with a discarded petrol container. A hidden recording device captured incriminating conversations, with Philpott confessing guilt and coaching his wife, Myred, to stick to their story. The most twisted part: Philpott encouraged Myred to have sex with Mosley to keep him loyal. Throw in some CCTV footage and neighbor testimonies, and the evidence was clear. This wasn't a tragic accident. It was cold-blooded murder. On May 28, 2012, Philpott and Myred were arrested on suspicion of murder. They were formally charged 2 days later. By November 5, 2012, Paul Mosley had also been arrested. The trial: unraveling a deadly plot. The 2013 trial unveiled the horrifying truth in grim detail. Mick Philpott didn't just orchestrate the fire. He roped in Myred and family friend Paul Mosley to frame Lisa, regain custody of the children, and milk more benefits. It's sickening how far they were willing to go. The jury wasn't buying Mick's sob story, and who could blame them? The evidence was damning. Mosley had even boasted about being a suspect on dating sites. Despite his role in the plot, Philpott seemed desperate to keep Mosley in line, raising suspicions of coercion. By December, Mosley's charge was downgraded to manslaughter, and Philpott and Myred's charges were similarly reduced. Philpott even admitted to having sexual encounters with both Myred and Mosley shortly after the children's deaths. The plan to frame Lisa for the fire and seize her children for more benefits fell apart. On April 2, 2013, Philpott, Myred, and Mosley were found guilty of manslaughter in the deaths of the 6 children. Philpott received a life sentence with a minimum of 15 years. Myred got 17 years, and Mosley was sentenced to 8.5 years. Myred's appeal was denied. Her sentence was upheld due to her role in the fire and continued deceit. Released in November 2020 under a new identity for protection, her release drew criticism from the Center for Crime Prevention. Mosley was released in May 2021 but returned to prison in 2022 for parole violations, only to be released again in November 2023. Philpott, on the other hand, remains in prison, labeled a psychopath and a cruel manipulator. Final thoughts. Philpott's story is one of unchecked greed, manipulation, and tragic loss. His children became casualties of a man more concerned with money and attention than their lives. He got his punishment, but the true cost is measured in 6 young lives cut short by a father who saw them as little more than financial assets. What do you think about people like him in our society? Let us know in the comments section.